Everybody is writing and talking about the book of Revelation these days. But I have to tell you, they're not speaking intelligently about the book of Revelation. Our guest today does, in fact, speak on the basis of many years of research, the leading of the Lord, and I'm talking about author and lecturer Bill Salus. Bill, welcome to Prophecy Watch.
Gary, thanks. It's good to be back on the program.
And you and I have noted that Revelation is in the news today. Everybody's talking about the apocalypse, the coming horrific period of time. And yet, when we as Christians look at the book of Revelation, we get something entirely different out of it. And I want to go back a few years as we talk about the book of Revelation to your first book, starting in 2011, and it was called Revelation Road. And let's just begin with Revelation Road. Explain to people what you were trying to convey in this book.
It's one thing to talk about Bible prophecies. It's another thing to see how they would actually affect a family that experiences them. And so Revelation Road is actually two books in one, Gary. It's a novel that's easy to read. Mm-hmm. We contracted a novelist to assist me with making sure it was easy to read. And it also explains the prophecies in the novel. In other words, as a novel, there's certain author liberties you can take to paint the story. So unlike the Left Behind series, which was a well-read series,
sure,
this actually has a commentary section as well. We call it a companion's commentary. So as the reader goes through one chapter of the novel, he or she can go through and say, well, why did Bill say what he said in the novel? What are the prophecies related? So we give them a biblical commentary. It's two books in one. And, it's just, my goal is to chronologically order the events of prophecies between now and the second coming of Christ. And, of course, there's just too many to put into one book, so we've devised a series. It'll probably end up being a trilogy. We're just issuing book 2 now. Revelation Road it was written in 2011, came out in 2012. And as you were saying, and as you opened this program, everything is starting to converge right now. Mm-hmm. And that's why this receptivity level, this intensity is coming up where people are, there's more apocalyptic movies out now.
Oh, yeah.
Matter of fact, there's been several apocalyptic movies written since I wrote Revelation Road. That they're different than this one. This one actually came out before some of them. But, there's a fervor right now because of what's going on in the world.
Well, there's no hope in the apocalyptic movies. And I've seen the trailers for a lot of them. I don't usually go to them, the ghost and monster genre of movies, or World War, or the volcanic eruptions, or tidal waves, or whatever the theme happens to be. The last book in the Bible is called the Apocalypse of John, and that translates into English as Revelation. And from the Christian perspective, there is so much hope and so much uplift in the book of Revelation. It is not a condemning thing. It does not drive you to despair to read the book of Revelation, because God provides a way out for those who believe in Him. And that's really at the heart of what you're writing about.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, the subtitle to the Revelation Road book is Hope Beyond the Horizon. The concerns we're seeing coming upon humanity, we're being thrust into a period of time of which the Bible has more to say about than any other period of time. I'm quoting Chuck Missler there, a guest you've had before. The point is, the final generation has more said about it than even when Jesus Christ walked on the earth. And this is not a book about Christian zombies and zombie apocalypses. This is a family, grandparents who believe their grandson, their grandchildren have been birthed into the final generation, and they're trying to prepare them for the troubling events that are about to happen. And so this book is very important so we can say, look, this stuff is about to happen. These prophecies that are covered in Revelation Road could happen at the present time. They could happen now. And so therefore, how will they happen, and how will you be prepared for them when they come, roll off the parchments and hit the pavement?
Now let's go back to the beginning. And I want Bill to explain to you how Revelation Road really started, and how you prayed about this, and how your prayer was answered.
Yes, Gary, it was a pivotal time in my ministry. I had gone full-time ministry from my business before. I believe it was that time the Lord chose me to go do that. And I was praying late one night, wanting to make sure that, Lord, I made the right decision to go full-time. It was a Sunday night, about 3 in the morning. I'm praying fervently. And I said, Lord, I've got a book swimming around in my head. I want to outline all the events that are going to happen. People want to know how things are going to happen, how to prepare for them. And so put these things into a chronological order and make a long story short. Gary, the very next morning I get a call from a wonderful couple, a man and a wife. They commissioned me to write this book. And that happened in answer to prayer the day after I prayed. And so the Lord answers prayers in His own time, and sometimes that can be real swiftly. And thankfully, I said, okay, you want me to write this book, you want me to go full-time. And that really is what sprung me into full-time ministry confidently.
Now, you have, I guess, graduated into another series of prophetic expositions following Revelation Road. You took a little detour for a while. Psalm 83, for example, which I think opened a whole field of discussion when you talked about Psalm 83 as a prophetic psalm. And so for a while, you kind of detoured off of Revelation Road. Let's talk about that period.
Well, it's interesting because, I initially had written a book called Israelistine. And that book has been updated with the Psalm 83 book that you were just talking about. Before I wrote the Psalm 83 book, I wrote Revelation Road. I felt that let's put this into a story and let's lay out these prophecies through a series of books. In 2012, after Revelation Road was written, I actually wrote Apocalypse Road, which is book 2, the one we'll be talking about here, with a lot of interesting things that happen after the events of Revelation Road, carrying the family on through the story of the end times. And it was in the process, we kind of decided this book is a little bit ahead of its time, Apocalypse Road. We need to unpack a few more things in Revelation Road with more detail until the signs of the times are converging more and the receptivity of the readership is at a level where they're really ready to tackle the stuff that you're going to write in Apocalypse Road. Fascinating information that is important to talk about in the end times that has been vastly overlooked. So, like you said, the first thing along the line was, well, let's update. The Arab Spring was going on. Let's update the Psalm 83 things. There were a lot of objections. Is it really a prophecy? Does it really set the stage for Ezekiel 38?
Right.
Is the concluding Arab-Israeli war? Has it been fulfilled? We addressed all those in the Psalm 83 book, and that was very important. And then we started thinking, well, if we're going to outlay everything chronologically, we've got to make sure we've caught every potential prophecy out there. Has there been anything else vastly overlooked? And sure enough, we find that Jeremiah 49, verses 34 through 39, is talking about a prophecy dealing with Elam, which is dealing with Iran, which seems to have nuclear implications. So we wrote the book Nuclear Showdown in Iran, revealing this ancient prophecy of Elam. So that was during this window period between now to 2011 and 2012. We wrote Psalm 83, and then we found Jeremiah 49, Elam, and then another book had to be out. No longer will we just talk about prophecies. The prophecies we've written in Revelation Road could happen at the present time. There's no more preconditions. So we wrote the Now Prophecies book, which you folks have offered here. And,
Sure.
And I think it was one of your best sellers.
Oh, yeah, it was. The Now Prophecies continues to be a bestseller because, let's face it, the word now attracts attention. And you and I both believe that we're seeing some extremely important events unfolding at the moment in terms of Bible prophecy. We're seeing events in the Middle East, but we've been seeing those for a long time. Now we're ranging up into Ukraine and over into Turkey and Europe and the general breakdown of political stability throughout the world. And I think everybody, Bill, is starting to look up and say, we can't be very far away from something big.
And that's why Apocalypse Road needs to come out now, Gary, because all the signs are converging. One of the reasons we believe we're deep into the end times is because all the end times are converging. For the longest time, we thought, well, when Israel became a nation in 1948, well, that's the tip-off that now the world hourglass has made its final spin into the end times. But the greater tip-off even now, because that was, over 6 decades ago, is
Right.
that everything is just piling on, and one prophecy is about to happen, leading to another, to another, to another. It won't be another 6 decades until we see these prophecies coming, and when they start coming, they'll come in rapid succession.
Now back to Revelation Road for just a moment. The setting here is grandparents thinking about their grandchildren. And the idea is, what am I going to do? If all this looms in somewhere in the near future, what about my kids? What about my grandchildren? Well, that's become even more important as a theme right now. I know people, I know many, many Christians right now who are worried about what's going to happen to their kids. And these are people who believe in the view of eschatology that you and I believe in. And naturally, they would be worried about their kids, some of whom have gone off to college and sort of walked away from the Lord, and they're saying, will my kid have another chance? Will my kid have a chance? Should I go in the rapture and my child or grandchild doesn't? Will that child or grandchild have an opportunity to receive Christ? And these are legitimate theological questions. And you have dived right into the heart of this series of questions.
Well, we really have. You're absolutely right. And that's why the easy reading novel is so important, because you actually put those grandparents and those people who are concerned about their loved young ones, grandkids, and children into the shoes of the characters. And you provide them the hope and understanding, okay, look, these kind of prophecies are going to come and happen, and here's how they're going to affect the world, and here's how you can respond to that. And so we cover those various prophecies leading up to the actual rapture. We get through Psalm 83, we get through nuclear showdown, what happens in Iran, we get through the destruction of Damascus, and we see how the stage gets set for the Ezekiel 38 invasion as we carry into Apocalypse Road book, and then the book concludes with the rapture. And I hate to give away the end of the story, but I will tell you this, when they read that last chapter in the Revelation Road novel, they will need a box of Kleenex close by. It's a very touching situation, because now people get left behind. And now what we pick up with right now is, do those people who get left behind have a second chance to make a choice toward Christ? Well, yes, people are getting saved after the rapture all over the place, but there are some teachers out there right now who say, if you've heard the gospel before the rapture,
Right.
and you did not make your decision for Christ and become saved, thus now you did not get raptured, you've been left behind because you remained an unbeliever. Some people actually teach, according to what I believe is erroneous teaching in 2 Thessalonians 2, that they don't have a second chance at salvation, and that troubles many of probably your viewers that may have heard that teaching. And I put 7 reasons in Apocalypse Road, the second book, as to why that is just erroneous teaching. There are 7 reasons why you do have a second chance.
And we'll talk about those 7 reasons in a bit, but what interests me right now is what a lot of people are saying, and you've heard this, you'll continue to hear it, and that is that if the tribulation comes in the very, very near future, we're all going to go into it together. And at some point after that, then the rapture will take place. So all Christians are going to have to experience some form of tribulation. Some Christians might go 3/4 of the way through. Some might go through all the way to the end. There are various opinions, but your research has dealt with the period of time following the rapture and moving forward to the beginning of the tribulation. And you're looking at a gap there. You're looking at a period of time. Now, very few people have done this as systematically as you have, and this is what I find really interesting.
And this is why we've waited until now to bring this research out forward. It required a lot of research. We had to look at that gap. Before I talk about that gap, I do want to say this about the rapture. Since there's a commentary that goes with the novel aspect of these books, and Revelation Road concludes with the rapture, I devote a section of commentary to why the rapture is a pre-trib event. I give many reasons, many examples and stuff like that. I know a lot of the viewers, I want to speak to you directly, I know a lot of you are wondering about that. Do we escape the wrath of God that's going to come in the tribulation period? And yes, we do. We're told that in numerous places. And I list those scriptures in Revelation Road, and I talk about the other evidences that the church is not here during the tribulation period. So therefore, Gary, swinging back now to what you're talking about. So therefore, what happens when the tribulation period starts, that 7-year tribulation period, also known as Daniel's 70th week, it is not triggered by the rapture of the church. The rapture of the church does not start the 7-year time clock of the tribulation period. It's the confirmation of a false covenant in Daniel 9:27 that actually gets that 7-year clock ticking. So therefore, you've got a rapture. You have a period of time between the rapture and the confirmation of the false covenant. I call it the post-rapture. It happens after the rapture, but it's a pre-trib period because it's before the tribulation. So post-rapture, pre-trib, gap. There's a gap there. Now, the question is, how long is that gap? If that gap is extended for more than a day, week, or a month, then you might suspect that there's some powerful events that are going to take place in that, because at that point after the supernatural rapture, the paranormal becomes the new normal. And scientific answers as to what happened are not going to satisfy the concerns of what's going on with the people, with the uncertain futures that are left behind.
Well, Bill, you know, and I know that for many, many years, perhaps 10, 15, maybe more years, a few Christian researchers have suggested that there would be some kind of a little pause or a gap between the rapture and the beginning of the tribulation. Some suggested maybe it would be a year. Some as long as maybe 3.5 years, and that's in print from many years ago. But it was not considered to be an important idea. It sort of rested in the background.
That's right.
But now I think the idea is becoming important.
Well, the reason it's important, Gary, right now is that the Bible speaks of a final generation. And we talked about this in the beginning. There's been more said in the Bible for that generation than any other generation that lived. And that information is God's gift to that generation. And that generation could be this generation, meaning the people who will get left behind and go through this post-rapture, pre-tribulation gap. Many of them could be alive right now. Matter of fact, many of them could be in your family, dear viewer, someone in your sphere of life, your workplace, your friends, your family. And that's why we want to speak to them. We're going to provide the book now, Apocalypse Road, which will talk about the events that they will experience. They're not going to jump right into the tribulation period. We're going to show them why there's a little bit of time here in the middle and why there's certain things they should be on the lookout for. And by the way, those are big, big perilous events. The tribulation events are even worse, but we're building up with terrible events in the gap period, which means this book is an instruction manual for them then, but it's an instruction manual for you now, how to get them so they don't want to be involved after the rapture. They want to get raptured with you. So it's going to give you extra evidence and reasons how you can show them logically that this is an important time right now to accept Christ during the church age, because the events the Bible predicts that follows are perilous, and you, because of your love for them, you don't want them to go through it.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I have right here on the table in front of me a few things that Bill has put out. Here's a DVD called The Now Prophecies. America and the Coming Mideast Wars, Psalm 83, in which he talks about the prophecy implicit in that psalm. But the one that just caught my eye as you were talking is nuclear showdown in Iran. Now, we're talking about something that is imminent. We're talking about something that, if it popped, and that nuclear reactor down there on the Persian Gulf could poison the waters. I mean, a lot of possibilities, and the Iranians now have long-range rockets. They're developing ICBMs with our financial help, I might add. Let's talk about that just for a minute to set the scene. What in the world is going on in the Middle East right now?
Right, and we do cover that in Revelation Road. And what you've got there is when you talk about the nuclear reactor in Bushehr by the Persian Gulf, that's exactly where Elam is territorially. And Jeremiah wrote, before Ezekiel wrote Ezekiel 38, that prophecy many of your viewers are aware of, that Gog and Magog invasion, and Iran's in that as Persia. Jeremiah actually wrote probably a decade before Ezekiel wrote that prophecy about Iran also, but dealing with Elam. And so this is why this book and DVD is so critical, because it actually has a prophecy that seems to find application in the current events that are going on with Iran's nuclear scenario right now, which cannot be trusted. And so basically at this point in time, I'm actually looking for that prophecy, probably be to the next prophecy to find fulfillment, and it's in that DVD.
But the rapture could take place before the nuclear showdown in Iran.
I'm glad you brought that up because I don't want to let you think that I think something has to happen before the rapture. The rapture is an imminent event. It could happen at the present time. And that's why right now is the critical time to redeem the time, because Jesus Christ is waiting for the command from his heavenly Father to come and get his bride, to fetch her, to go to those mansions he's preparing for her in John 14. And the moment the heavenly Father says, son, go get your bride, he will come instantly. It says, in the twinkling of an eye, not a split second will we stand between him and his union with you. However, we have today and today only to pay attention to what we need to be preparing for, because we don't know when he's coming. So we have to redeem the time, Gary.
You know, we're not going to have time on this program to fully exploit all of the ramifications of the Apocalypse Road scenario. But I do want to tell you that we've got another program coming after this. And what I wanted to do right now is look at something that Bill talks about in Isaiah chapter 28, verse 15. And in fact, it's verses 15 and 16 that are just so pertinent, and it's kind of one of those prophecies that somehow got shuffled to the back. Mm-hmm. But tell us how that figures into what you're writing about.
Right. Well, this is critical because we're talking about a gap. You know, ultimately, a tribulation period is going to come, and that tribulation period is going to come when the false covenant of Daniel 9:27 is confirmed. Right. However, that covenant was spoken about by Isaiah well over 100 years before Daniel gave us his details about who's going to help confirm it. It would be the Antichrist, and then it's for a 7-year period. Isaiah tells us more about this covenant, Gary, in Isaiah 28, verses 15 through 18.
And here's verse 15. It says, because you have said, and the you here is Israel, because you've said we've made a covenant with death and with hell, we're in agreement. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us, for we've made lies our refuge, and under falsehood we've hidden ourselves. Wow, that's an indictment, but it suggests that Israel makes a covenant with the wrong people.
Right, and from the Lord's perspective, he's calling it death, and you're in agreement with Sheol. In other words, this agreement is right out of the pits of Hades itself. But they're willing to make an agreement with that because it says they're trying to avoid an overflowing scourge that is sweeping throughout the earth at the time. When we look, see, this covenant, what is that overflowing scourge? It has to be in existence for Israel to actually make a covenant. It can't be a fearful figment of Israel's imagination. So we have to look at what's going on in the world at the time this covenant is made. What's going on in that gap?
Right.
And that's what the Apocalypse Road is going to put a face on all that and explain that to people, because Israel's going to be wanting to have that temple, if it's not already built by that time, so that the Messiah will come, and whatever's going on in the world right now, they're going to think, well, whatever it takes for us to do what we need to do to get the Messiah to come, not realizing he's already come in Jesus Christ, we'll do that because it'll be politically expedient to hasten the first coming of Christ in their estimation, and he'll correct everything, and he'll issue the kingdom, which is the high point of Old Testament teaching and prophecies. And so they're willing to sign this covenant of falsehood with a real party. Death, you can't sign a covenant with intangibles like death and Hades, although God is calling them that. There is a real bona fide party that Israel covenants with, and so we put a face on who that party is and what that overflowing scourge is.
And by the way, this is Israel being spoken of here. It's not the church. Same thing in Daniel 9:27, where Israel makes a covenant with the man of sin there. And it's very clear from the context that he's not talking about a covenant between the church and the man of sin. He's talking about a covenant between Israel.
You and I have had this discussion. The church is not even on the earth at the time this covenant is confirmed. We are in Revelation 4 and 5, a picture with the 24 elders redeemed from among men, the tribes, tongues, and nations. John is caught up in Revelation 4. We believe this is a strong evidence that the church is already in heaven. And once the church is in heaven, Jesus Christ is opening a scroll with the sealed judgments and rolling out. First is Satan's point man, the Antichrist, we would commonly teach, comes out as the white horseman in Revelation 6 of the first seal. So now the guy in Daniel 9:27 who can confirm, and he confirms it. He would be like Bill Clinton confirmed a covenant between Jordan and Israel, and Jimmy Carter confirmed a covenant between Israel and Egypt. This guy's going to confirm a covenant. He's going to be Israel is going to trust him in a political position to confirm a covenant with some other party, and your people need to know who that other party is, and that's what Apocalypse Road will tell them.
Now, what's really fascinating to me, and we're going to go deeply into this on our next program with Bill, is that it takes time for prophetic events to develop. And this points to a period of some time between the rapture of the church and the developments we're talking about in the tribulation, or even prior to the tribulation. Well, I think you'll agree that Bill Salus has done a lot of thinking, and he's challenged us. He's challenged us to look at his material and to make up our own minds about that prophetic period that's just ahead. I want to tell you, by the way, that in the February 2017 issue of our magazine, The Prophecy Watcher, right here on page 10, Bill has submitted an article called Final Warning to the Final Generation. And in this, he defines this period, the post-rapture, pre-trib period that he's been talking about. And I got to tell you, it's a very, very interesting article, and you'll get a lot out of it. Again, every time you order from the Prophecy Watchers online bookstore, we always include a free copy of our magazine. So you'll be getting one of those if you order Bill's new book, Apocalypse Road, just $19.95 in the Prophecy Watchers online bookstore. Apocalypse Road contains not only the summation of what Bill's been working on for many years now, but also his latest ideas in which he goes out there and sort of challenges our classical, conventional thinking. I can offer you the Apocalypse Road package, by the way, which includes this book, Bill's previous book, Revelation Road, and 2 DVDs from our 2016 Rocky Mountain Prophecy Conference. Bill spoke there, and we have his presentations on DVDs. The Apocalypse Road package, that's the book, Apocalypse Road, plus Revelation Road, and the 2 conference DVDs, yours for just $34.95. And then let me say something else here about the Bill Salus DVD collection. These 4 DVDs really track Bill's thinking over a number of years. And just looking back through these, you have America and the coming Mideast wars. You have Psalm 83, the missing prophecies revealed. You have the now prophecies. And you remember not too long ago, Bill was talking about the prophecies he calls the now prophecies as opposed to the next prophecies. Well, all of this you can get from our Prophecy Watcher online bookstore. Go there, scroll down to Bill's name, and you'll find these offers. We've got a lot of reading and viewing for you. And when we come back, we're going to talk more with Bill about this amazing idea of what happens after the rapture and before the tribulation. Bill, we'll see you soon.
We will.
I'm Gary Stearman. You keep watching, everybody. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.